Namaste, I am Dilip Kulkarni from Maharashtra. Ever since my younger days, maybe some 4 decades ago, I have been interested in the subject of development. And since that age, I was not even 25 at that time, I would say, I am of the opinion that the present concept of development and the pattern of development is not okay, it's disastrous, and we will have to find a good pattern, a benign pattern of development. The development as it is called today is merely economic growth. The whole subject of development has been taken into their fold by economists, and they say that they are only the people to decide what is development. And they have set some parameters for measuring development. At the national level, the parameter they use is gross domestic product. And at the individual level, they say when consumption increases, there is development of individuals, and when production increases, there is development. So they have two yardsticks, we can say, per capita consumption and per capita production. I always thought that this is a very wrong way to look at the topic of development. Development is a very broad concept, holistic concept, and we should not look towards it very narrowly. Okay, to some extent, increase in consumption may be called as development. If one is not getting enough water, enough food, enough clothing, housing is not good, he is living in some subhuman conditions, we can say. Increasing his consumption or her consumption in that condition may be called as development. But I always think that there has to be some upper limit. For consumption, there has to be some upper limit, and for production, there has to be some upper limit. And in the present concept of development and the pattern of development, these two limits are not taken into consideration. They are overlooked. The economics says that you have to increase your consumption infinitely, limitless consumption should be there, go on increasing, there is no upper limit. And as we have to increase the consumption, on the other side, there should be a commensurate increase in production also. Maybe in agriculture, maybe in industry, maybe in service sector, maybe everywhere. So production has to increase. And when production in all the sectors of the economy increases, the GDP of a country increases, and the more the GDP, the more you are developed. That has been defined by economists. So far as that particular science is concerned, pseudoscience I will say, it is not a pure science, it's a pseudoscience, it may be okay. But what are the prices that we pay for that type of overconsumption and overproduction? They are not taken into consideration. In fact, all the costs of this development, they are officially externalized. For example, we will take the social or environmental costs also. Say when agricultural production increases, we have to use hybrid seeds, we have to use chemical pesticides, and we have to use fertilizers, chemical fertilizers. We have to increase the rate of their usage, and we all of us know that these three factors are destroying the agricultural environment. We have to cut trees because we want more land, we want to do mining there, we want to build dams, so forests are cut, and that damages the environment. When we produce so many things in more quantities, we harness the resources, we dig them, we convert them into useful substances. For that we use energies, so we deplete energy resources also. So we find that all the natural resources and the energy resources, they get depleted. So the overall picture of development, if we see, so long as the environment is concerned, we find that the graph of development is like a linear growth. It grows on linear, GDP grows on increasing linearly, or maybe it adds up, compounds, and it grows exponentially. But when there is a growth in production, the resources go down, the stock of resources goes down, the energy resources, they get depleted or they start getting depleted. When we use more energies, pollution is more, air pollution is more, water pollution is more, land pollution is more, the whole environment is polluted. We create more waste also. So we find that it's almost a destruction of nature under the name of development. And so from all sides we are almost have a total attack we can see on the nature, and we are destroying the nature. And so these days it is called that the present pattern of development is one of non-sustainability. One commission was appointed by the United Nations, I think in the 1970s it was appointed. It is called the Brundtland Commission. And it was given the task of defining how this development process can become sustainable. Its report has been published under the title Our Common Future. And for the first time it was defined what is meant by sustainable development. It says, meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And I think it's a very good definition. If we apply this definition to our usage of resources these days, we find that we are using up the resources and leaving nothing for the future generations. So to have this development sustainable, we will have to change, I think, basically the concept of development. We will have to first work at the conceptual level, but the concept has to be set right. The goal of development can never be increase in production and increase in consumption. Okay, that is one part of it, but again there has to be some limit to that. Unless those limits are imposed, the natural limits are imposed and honored, the development won't become sustainable. But the main problem is today's development scenario is that nobody is ready to accept these limits. Each and every nation wants to increase its GDP up to infinity. So they want resources in constantly larger quantities. They want energies in larger quantities. And so they will pollute more, and so they will create more waste, and so the biodiversity will become less and less. So the present pattern will be non-sustainable by default if we stick to the present concept of development. So I think we will have to have a change, an about turn I would say, in the concept basically. Mere consumption or mere increase in consumption cannot be the goal of development. Okay, we have to consume. Consumption is a means I would say, but not the goal of life. And the point at which we cease to give consumption the goal of life, I think the scenario changes. And I think in India we have that particular, our history I would say, has given us this right goal of development. The goal that India has put forward, maybe Hinduism, maybe Buddhism, maybe Jainism, all the dharmas in India we will say, has put a spiritual goal of life before our eyes. We call it moksha, we may call it mukti, we may call it samadhi, we may call it brahmi sthiti, we may call it nirvana. Names are different, but the goal of life is basically spiritual goal of life. It is the evolution in consciousness and expansion of consciousness. That is the spiritual goal of life. We have to go on expanding. We should not remain limited to our body and bodily pleasures and bodily consumption. No, we have to take mind into account. We have to take intellect into account. And by after the ultimate goal of life has to be spiritual. We'll have to develop at all the levels: physical level, psychological level, intellectual level, and spiritual level. And that particular holistic part of development we have to take into consideration. And this particular thing has been put forward in India, the spiritual goal of life I would say, right from the Vedas and Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita, all these texts, the spiritual texts, the philosophy, Indian philosophy we can say, Hindu philosophy we can say, they put forward this goal. So I can say that this particular philosophy of controlling one's senses and minds to get the bliss or ultimate happiness, it has a benign effect on the environment. When our consumption starts reducing, the pressure on production goes on reducing, and so resources are automatically conserved, energy resources are automatically conserved, there is very little pollution if at all, there is very little waste if at all, and so biodiversity is maintained. So we find that this particular process of controlling one's consumption, or at least not allowing the consumption to transgress some limits, inner limits of man I would say, that is the thing. And when any person starts doing that, particular, it is called as sadhana, controlling the senses and mind is called as the sadhana. And when we enter in the process of sadhana, there are benign effects on the environment. And when resources are conserved, energies are conserved, there is less pollution, less waste, lot of biodiversity is there, then we say that the development automatically becomes sustainable. Today what we are doing is, we are trying to make development sustainable from without. We want to make some laws, we want to enforce some restrictions and all that. We want to use different types of energies, we call as green energies. We want to use some different types of resources. But that is not going to do anything, I would say. Because whatever we call as green energies, when we look them towards from the lens, through the lens of entropy, we find that they are not green, they are more black. When we produce solar photovoltaic, solar energy, solar electricity, we can say, we have to invest huge energy in first producing a solar panel. Same is with the windmill, same is with the ethanol. Maybe all the green energies which are touted as green, they are not green, they are more black. So it is going to worsen the situation if we go for such type of alternatives. So what I feel personally is that the change has not to be from without, it has to be from within. Each and every individual will have to set this particular goal of spiritual evolution, I would say, mukti or samadhi like that, and he will have to start living in that direction. And Indian tradition has given a nice path, I would say, roadmap, I would say, to go towards that goal. That goal is slightly a higher goal, and Bhagavad Gita says that it cannot be achieved in one life. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate. So the period is not a few years or one life also. This is that Bahunam janmanam ante. You have to go on doing sadhana for births, and ultimately after a few births you will reach that particular level of samadhi or brahmi sthiti. But till that time what we have to do is, we have to follow the path of four purusharthas. That is what Indian tradition says. It has said 4 purusharthas before our eyes. They are dharma, artha, kama and moksha. Moksha is the ultimate goal of life, that is the spiritual goal of life. But when we are going on that path, artha and kama, they are not negated, they are allowed. But kama means the desires, artha means the means to get those, to fulfill those desires. But for this kama and artha, on the other side, there is a restriction of dharma. Now this word dharma is wrongly, erroneously translated as religion. Religion is not dharma. Dharma is a thing, I would say. Dharma is, it has been nicely defined in Mahabharata. They say, dharnat dharmam iti ahu. Everything that sustains, the thing that sustains a particular thing is called as dharma. All the duties or all the things that I do with my body, if they sustain my body, that is called as sharira dharma. What I eat, how much exercise I do, this ahara, vihara, nidra, they are the basic things for maintaining our body. So this is called as sharira dharma. Keeping the mind silent, keeping the mind peaceful, that is the mano dharma. All the things, maybe prayers, maybe bhajans and all that. Or keeping the mind silent while doing all the jobs, karma yoga, samatvam yoga uchyate. That type of thing, it is called as the mano dharma. So similarly, there is some parivara dharma. The duties that family members follow or do to keep the family intact and in a good condition, that is called as parivara dharma. Similarly, it is samaja dharma, that keeps the society intact, that doesn't allow societies to degrade. There is rashtra dharma, and again ultimately there is paryavarana dharma or nisarga dharma. So, artha and kama of a single, of an individual will have the limit of dharma, means sustainability. In today's language we can say, dharma cannot be translated as religion, dharma will have to be translated as sustainability. So when we follow these principles of dharma, our artha and kama of individual, they will be restricted. They are not totally they are not negated totally. There is a huge scope for enjoyment in life. And in fact, in Indian tradition, we enjoy so many things. On the Kojagiri Purnima day, we enjoy moonlit night. On the Amala Purnima day, we sit below the Amala tree and enjoy that. In the summer, we enjoy so many things. Practically in the Pongal or Sankranti period, we eat good and til. So there are occasions for enjoyment also. So it is not that we have to live with long faces without enjoying anything. No, it is not like that. Till such time that our consumption does not transgress the limits of nature, they are allowed. And so Artha and Kama are allowed, and an individual has to go through 4 phases of life. At the Grihasthashrama phase of it, he can enjoy all the bodily pleasures or the material pleasures that we think about. But only thing is that has to be within limits. So we find that this philosophy ultimately results in a way of life which is eco-friendly and which ultimately lead to sustainability. The second aspect of Indian philosophy, I think, is the Advaita part of it. In India, we have this Advaita philosophy where is non-dualism. The whole universe is one. When we say that whole universe is one, we call that particular principle as Brahman. The whole universe is Brahman. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. That is the Mahavakya in Sanskrit. So the whole thing is Brahman, and so whatever we see around is also a manifestation of Brahman. Maybe human beings, maybe non-human beings also, maybe trees also, everything is there. It is a manifestation of the Brahman. So when we say that there is universal oneness, in our daily behavior, daily activities, it results into universal brotherhood. Vishwa Bandhutva, maybe Swamiji talked about that in his Chicago lecture. And this universal brotherhood is not only for the human beings, or not only for the human beings, it is for the animals, trees, everything. So I have a brotherhood, a feeling of brotherhood with trees, feeling of brotherhood with animals. And when that feeling is there in my mind, I don't kill them. I go more towards ahimsa. There will be some himsa. I cut tree, it's a himsa. Maybe I have to kill a snake if it is attacking, maybe it's a himsa. But then it will be limited to a certain extent. There will be rampant himsa, rampant killing won't be there. And basically, the Indian tradition has developed so many ways and means to develop affinity, love, gratitude for the things that we use in nature. When we use a plant, especially in Ayurveda, it is said that when you are cutting a plant for preparing a medicine, you first pray for it. You must pray to it that give me your essence so that some person can be cured through that medicine. So there is prarthana, there is puja. We worship so many trees. Maybe ashwatha is there, vata is there, mango is there, amala is there, neem is there. So many trees we worship them. So many animal forms we worship. We worship cows, we worship bullocks, we worship snakes. So many animals we worship. And even some inanimate things we worship. Maybe we worship the soil, the bhumi as we call. We do bhumi pujana when we are constructing maybe a house, maybe a bridge, maybe a road. We worship water. Udaka Shanti is there when we do some activities in the spiritual region. We worship brooms. We worship tools and equipments. All these are worshipped. Whatever is useful to us is worship. It is treated as a god. We try to find divinity in it. So this develops affinity for the inanimate things also. And all this ultimately helps in today's language to maintain the biodiversity. When I have a feeling of gratitude, there is I don't kill it, I don't create any harm to it, and I try to conserve that species, conserve that entity also. And so this way we can say that through Indian tradition, if we follow this Indian tradition of worshipping so many things, of course with full feeling for that, not only a ritual but with full feeling for that, it will ultimately help in making the development sustainable. We will be using things, but will be within the limits of nature. I will say there are two limits that are imposed on us. For consumption, there is inner limit of man, inner limit of my body, inner limit of my mind. How much I can consume, how much money I can go for, how much the tension I can bear. There are so many limits on my consumption. So inner limit of man for consumption and outer limit of environment for production. So when I have to produce something, I will have these 3 or 4 limits will be there. The limits of resources, the limits of energy resources, the limits of pollution, the limits of waste, and the limits of biodiversity. So by keeping our production within these outer limits of environment, the development can be sustainable. And I think without going into all these details, technical details, in India, our seers and our chintakas, they try to develop a feeling for nature. They did not tell people the science of sustainable development or anything like that. They did not talk about biodiversity. They created love for all the non-human entities, non-human beings on the earth. They created love for trees. They told people to plant trees. They told people to love trees. Each and every married woman in India gives a pot full of water to Tulasi plant every day. In so many Puranas, there are dictates about planting trees. Nagrodhamekam, Pichumandamekam, Ashwathamekam, Dashachinsanikam, Kapitha Bilva Malaki Trayancha, Panchamra Ropi, Narakam Nagache. If you plant these many trees, you won't go to Naraka. Okay? So a person thinks that, okay, I have to go to the Swarga, the heaven, so I will plant these trees. So these trees are planted, they are conserved. So that way, by developing a feeling of oneness, feeling of brotherhood, feeling of love, feeling of gratitude, we maintain the nature. And the basic thing is, once nature is maintained, we are maintained. Our sustainability depends on the sustainability of nature. So with this concept of development and the pattern that we were living, say up to 1900 or 1950, I would say, we have a proof that, oh yes, that pattern is sustainable. Our agriculture, for 10,000 years, farmers here are doing agriculture. But the basic thing for agriculture, the soil, its fertility has been maintained for thousands of years. Our waters, we have been using waters. We are building dams, we are irrigating, we are using waters. But the waters are pure, waters were pure and non-contaminated. There was till we were not independent. We became independent in 1947. In 1947, we had 33% of forest here. And before that period, before Britishers came, almost 50% or 60% of the land was covered with forests. Everybody will have to start following this Indian tradition. We'll have to learn the Indian philosophy, learn the Indian tradition, and then start following it for oneself, in his family, in his society, and maybe all the citizens in the nation. If they follow, they will lead, the whole country will lead, or I will say it can put forward before the world a pattern of sustainable development. And that development will not be just sustainable, it will be holistic. Sustainability is a good word, no doubt, but sustainability does not mean holism. In holism, we say at the material level, sustainability is there, but beyond that, the spiritual aspect of it gives it the whole pattern, the holism, I would say. The body, sustainability of the body, mind, and intellect is there, but the man grows, evolves in the spiritual field, and that gives the whole concept of development, the holism. And we will have to try for holistic development rather than mere sustainability at material level. Thank you very much.